Welcome back to Ormanay. As you can see, we are back in the studio. We've officially, when I left, I took a couple weeks off. We went out. I hope y'all enjoyed my live adventuring and the kayaking videos. So now it's time to get back to work. We've got our project is 100% done, and there will be a couple little touch-ups, some fine tuning with some black paint where the grout just doesn't want to seem to stick. But that will all happen after we make this frame. So really, I'm not really a carpenter. I'm just a craftsman. And I think that's a huge difference between the two. But I think that makes me qualified to attempt to do this my way. So the first decision, so I went to Home Depot and I walked home with this 8-foot 1x, and we're going to cut it up to make a frame. And then I've got some other cedar wood that's really easy to cut, and we'll cut some really thin stops out of those, and we'll glue everything together, screw everything together, and then when that's all done, I'll paint the frame outside, and then we will officially and finally install this window. So we're just going to use the window to get real life into, and I've got these nice little hooky-doo hooks to screw in. It's going to help hold the frame together, and it'll help hold the window up when it's ready for display. So we've got that. I've got my wood glue. I've got my wood screws. I've got my saw. And I think I'm going to use the finer tooth one. This one's a little bit rough cutter. A bit more of a rough cutter. And I want to get a nice little pencil that I can utilize. And I want to get a couple of squares. Definitely going to need this. I'm hoping I'll be able to use my corner jig to hold everything together so I can screw it together easily. But I found this little corner jig at the restore, and I've never used one before. But since we're just making a basic easy frame, I am, in total disclosure, I'm not going to do 45-degree angles on the corners, because this is the only metal 45-degree angle that I have, and I don't have an appropriate clamp. This is a handmade redneck project. This is going to be done real simple style. So, hello, Joe May. Nice to see you. I'm glad y'all came. Welcome to the stream. If you catch everybody up real quick, I walked to the Home Depot and I got me a big old piece of lumber. And we finished where we left off last week. We finished building my stained glass window. And we're going to frame it up and wrap it up and finally turn this pile of glass into a nice gift. So I'm glad you all are here. So I'm really just getting started, just getting everything laid out, making sure, I gotta have like 50,000 squares and 50,000 directions when I start attacking a project like this. Because, and then I've got these, I'll build my jig on the table to hold everything together so I can screw it and glue it. And like I said, this will be my first opportunity to experiment with the framing jig that I bought at the restore. I'm not really quite certain how it works or if it's going to work with this material, but I'm going to experiment. We'll find out. So welcome, welcome. Glad you're here. So that's the basic coverage of what we're talking about. Let me put this workboard away. I'll put it in here for now. I just went kayaking for 48 hours and all my gear is hanging in there by the window drying. I'm running out of room real quick. So in stained glass. This is not a carpentry lesson. This is a making a cheap frame from the hardware store, $2.50 piece of lumber lesson. But when I do stained glass, and I've done for years, and I'm going to wrap a piece of metal around something that I've done, I'll go and take my 45-degree angle. And I know because I've already done it on the project itself, right? So let me get y'all close up here real quick. Debbie, how are you? Nice to see you today. Jonathan, nice to see you. I'm good. I'm good. How are you? So here's a quick little trick if you're going to be doing some framing. Let me make sure I got my 45 on there. So I'm going to put my, here, let's do it on this side. I'm going to put my little 45-degree angle right there. And I've already got a black line because of the glass frame that goes around it. So keep that in mind. If you had to cut your 45-degree angles, what you would do is you mark them on your piece of glass and draw a little line. And then when you go to put your material up, you know exactly where to carry that line through. Oops, that's not a very good view. All right, so at any rate, I promise to keep this simple, and that's talking to myself. So we'll get started here real quick. And then I want to get this window out of the way. But I'm just going to use it for some raw measurements. And we'll put this away for now. And we'll check out. Make sure we pull the staple off the end of the lumber. Make sure we get that. Because the other end has a big old knot on it. So I want to use this end. I want to use this end. There's half of it. So we are just going to be doing some straight cuts. We're not doing 45-degree mitered joints on this project. And because it's going to be hanging in a window, I don't want my screws on the side. I want my screws on the bottom and on the top. So I want to make sure when I cut my top and my bottom that they're the short pieces and the side pieces come back the other way, right? So I'm going to mark that out. And I want to give just a little bit of breathing room for the glass and the wood will expand at different rates. So you want to leave maybe a 1/16 of an inch to an 1/8 of an inch, a little bit of clearance. It'll be loose in the frame until we glue it all up, because you want that wood to be able to expand and contract and not compress your window, right? Always little details. I'm from Brazil. I am from America. Right on. Appreciate that. Appreciate on the compliments there. You're very kind. So what I'm doing here, and now I'm going to make sure, and I've already, when I built this window, there's a mathematical, it's all symmetrical in the way it's all divided up. And all of that was figured out a long time ago. And so all I have to do now is just follow through with these last few steps. And so I'm not really explaining as much as I normally would, say if it was a class. But what I wanted to do today was just really show how you could just, with a few hand tools, you can make a simple project look really nice with a can of spray paint and a piece of wood. You can do wonders. So, like I said, I just added about a 1/16 of an inch onto that. And then I'm going to flip this around. Oh, and we're going to bang it up against the wall apparently. And then we're going to clamp that into place. I'm going to move the camera here in a second. Get you guys a little bit better view. Turder. Yeah, this is totally a little tiny studio, apartment studio. So welcome to the stream. I'm gonna have to rotate this around to get that up closer to the end of the table. Oh, my goodness. That's all they had was 8 footers. I had to have it. So I kind of want to protect that piece of wood because it is a piece of framing. So we'll put a little block on top of there. Down here. And then like I said, I wanted to use the finer tooth because this is kind of a display piece. It'll be hanging in the window. I don't want to use the rough cut saw. And I don't want to use power because I just don't need it. And this is kind of like fun for me. So it leaves a lot more room for mistakes, and that makes it challenging. So what I like to do is I put my hand down as a backstop and I kind of steady that saw to make sure it's straight up and down. So I want to make sure that I'm leaving that line right. And so I start off real nice and slow. Make sure I get going on exactly what I want. Okay. Right there. Whoop. See, and I just jumped the track on that. That's exactly what I was trying to avoid. That's right. That can be the back side. We'll just get this started nice and slow. No more jumping. Nice and slow. And I go really slow until I get all the way across of one side. Now I've got a channel to follow, right? Now I can dig in and go for it. Try to keep that saw nice and perpendicular. Flatten it out. See how I planed that out there? Just slide this forward a little bit. Clamp her on back down. Make sure I get the exact same size on each side. So these would be the top and bottom pieces right here. Whoop. That end is looking a little bit troublesome. I think that other end could be a little bit more square. It jumped the track just a hair, but I think we can make it work. All right, so once again, you know, this is a pull saw, so it doesn't cut on the forward stroke. It only cuts on the back stroke when you're first getting started, right? So you just want to establish a nice path. And I've got my hand behind it to keep it from going crazy. And now that I have a little bit of a path installed, make sure I'm still nice and perpendicular. And I'm going to be a little bit softer with this one because I did kind of tear into that other one a little too abruptly. And it kind of caused some chaos. flatten that in out. See how I plane that out at the end? You like that trick? So dumb. Alright. So those are looking pretty good. That's looking pretty good. That gives me just enough room there. Alright. So, I sometimes really like to just fly by the seat of my pants. And I'm just really not that worried about the actual number on a tape measure, right? Because I'm working with it in real time. It's right here in front of me. I don't need to measure and transfer a distance. I can mark it directly on my material, right? So now that I've got my ends established, this is going to give me my measurement in the other direction. So I'll kind of square all that up together on the end. Push that together. Make sure everything's looking good. Because I'm going to be cutting 2 of these exactly at that size. So I'm really liking that. We're leaving about a 1/16 of an inch of a gap so the wood can expand and contract and not crush my piece of glass. You know, in case we have some wild swing of weather overnight. You know how it is. That's just how I was taught. That's just how we do it. That's just how it's done. This is not German engineering. This is American craft. 2 completely different realities. So, let me cut this first one. See, now it's short enough I can put it straight to the table. That always helps. You know, and if you're worried about not having a steady hand, you know, you can always clamp a piece of metal down and use it as a guide. But I'm just moving slow enough and being real careful. And this is a birthday present, and it's for family, and it, you know, it's a craft. They know I'm building it by hand. They're not expecting something from a factory, right? They know it's going to be a handcrafted item. So, like I always do, start off nice and slow. And I replace my pencil line with the saw line. Very gently so you don't skip up out of there. I did that on the first piece. Okay. And once you get that line established, we got some harder grain down here at the end. Okay, there we go. And really, you just want the weight of your saw in your hand. You don't want to, you know, be trying to land punches on the moon. You just want to keep drawing it back and forth. And I've got it a little bit tight because I'm twisting just a hair. That could throw me off. Let's see. Let's see how we're looking there. I'm liking the looks of that. Alright. That one is a little sloppy looking. We'll get her squared up. They're just a little bit rough on the ends. They'll be fine. Like I said, this is not factory production. This is just making stuff. You know, and if you're a perfectionist type, I'm sure you'll figure out a way to do this, but in my mind, now that the window's already built, this is just like the fun, easy part. The hard part was building the window. Building a frame for it is kind of like just, you know, coasting downhill. I'm just enjoying it at this point, you know. Right on. I'm glad you all are here. Thank you for joining my stream today. I was going to make this into like an edited video where I was going to do it on high-speed camera. And I decided, oh, why not? I'll just do it live. We'll risk making mistakes in real time. What the hell, right? So this may turn out to be a video of how not to do it. I'm willing to accept that. I'll be in the annals of YouTube history of the How Not to Do It channel. These modern people, 20 years from now, they won't even recognize the tools in my hand without a plug-in. Oh, what's that weird thing he's using? We got a line established. And now alright, good about this. And my magic planer. Alright, let's see how we're looking there. I think most of that's looking real nice. Let me see here. I think I will recut this one. It's a little wonky looking. So we're going to throw that off to the side. And we want to make sure we reproduce this one, not that one. Wow, look at the difference in thickness from one end to the other. Would you look at that? Well, if that's not just the craziest thing, I might be stuck with that piece. Wow. That's crazy. It's about 1/4 of an inch thicker from one end to the other on this piece of wood. I mean, it's not meant for what I'm using it for. I get that. Yeah, see? It's just a hair wider now. That's really bizarro world. That has to be. No, because that's the other trim piece there. That is amazing. Well, it's a good thing I'm recutting the piece anyways, I guess. Yep. Wow, that's amazing. All right, let me cut this. Whoa, gravity. We don't turn the gravity off till later. All right, let me cut this second piece. We'll just cut this one over again. I'll feel better about it. Like I said, I always put my hand right behind my saw, just like the way a chef curls his fingers over when he cuts a pile of stuff. And I don't leave it on there. That's just for the first few seconds so I get this line marked in. And sometimes I'll just use my 2 fingers, like I'm saying, like a chef cutting vegetables. But that's just momentary, like I say, to get things going. This needs to be a little bit tighter. Alright, there we go. Well, that's really, being so careful with it. Because, you know, this is the second one I'm cutting. That's a little bit better. That other one was kind of funky looking on the end. There we go. Alright. Now, what I like to do, so I should have no problem. There's no reason that I can't install this later. So now that I've gotten my cuts and my measurements all the way around, now we're going to go put this in a safe place and we're going to continue on with the build. All right, now that's squared away. Let me move the camera back. Appreciate y'all being here. Hope you're having a good time watching me bumble around. I'm not really a carpenter, I'm a craftsman, and I'm just making it up as I go. You know, I'm sure if I had a boss, he'd be telling me some other proper way, and I know other proper ways to do this sort of thing. But I don't care. This is my studio. I'm doing it my way. This is a gift from my niece, and she'll like it. Well, trying to defend my construction methods. Alright, let's get that out of the way. Got this, got this. That goes that way. That goes that way. And that goes that way. Now, what I like to do when I'm engaged in a project like this, I'll take my big square. So we're basically doing the now we're going to retool the studio, so to speak. So I grab some of these little handy dandy nails. And what I'm going to do is make me a bigger square out here in the wild, right? So this will establish, because I'm going to glue this all together. Put one on the end so it won't slide out. Alright, let's get that squared up there. At this point, I need to be on that side. Alright. Just want to make sure I'm nice and square to the world. And we're just going to put one more in the middle to help with slippage. And then we'll put another one on the end. And so what I'm using, these are German stainless steel glazing nails. And I have had these for over 25 years, built thousands of stained glass windows, and these things still look brand new. Now, they're about like $2-3 a piece, I think, but they're super sharp. And they're wedge shaped, so the more you hammer them down, the more they'll push stuff in and lock things together. And then they're real easy to pull out with a pair of pliers on the back side. So I have used these German glazing nails for, what did I say, 25 years, building all kinds of stained glass windows. And it's just, to me, that's what I use for a clamp and jigs and all that kind of stuff almost consistently, religiously. So Okay, so now that we have this line established, we have to make this line. Now, here's a cool little trick right here. Get this all together. I want you to notice what I'm doing is I'm hammering the actual square into place first, so it won't move, right? Now we're starting to talk like some German engineering scientists, but this is, this would be done by now except for the fact that I'm explaining it as I go, because it might look funny, but this is a tried and true method. Okay, so we got one on the end. Keep it from slipping. And then we want to come up here on this end. And you want to hold everything together. And if you're just a hair off in the right direction, you can keep hammering these nails down and they'll spread out and wedge out and push things into place. But if you don't need them to do that, you don't hammer them in as far and they stay exactly where you put them. So let me get one more out here on the edge. Binga bang booma. Let's make sure that ain't going nowhere. Alright. And then we'll pull that one back out. And so now I've got a really nice 90-degree platform that I can start building on. That's all we did that for, right? So where we go next is wherever we want. So I'm going to have, this is how it's going to look. And let's just focus on one end at a time. Just like framing up a wall. Alright. Alright. And what I really want to do, oh, hold on a second. Let me flip that around the other way because I want that to be the front. So this is the back. Okay. I was trying to move that knot around to a more appropriate spot. Okay. So I've got that set. Oh no, it looks like we got a chunk missing out of that corner. Damn. What the heck, man? It's got a big old chunk out of there. I didn't even notice that. So that's all right. We're going to get rid of it and cut a new piece. Get rid of this damn knot. Good thing I bought the 8-footer. I'll be darned. I didn't even notice that. That was, I think, the first piece or the second piece I even cut. All right. Let me mark that. So we're going to, out of 4 pieces I've now cut, this will be number 6. Yeehaw, right? All right. Let me make sure that's all squared away there. All right. I can't believe that. And that's fine because I had that big knot on it. I'm glad to cut it out of there. But I was just going to work with it the way it was. It wasn't that big of a deal. But now I got a chance to get it right and start back over again. So, welcome to the framing stream. I guess that's what we're calling this one. I don't know what we're calling it. We're just trying to finish up this project. I've got back from the lake on Monday and, walked my 5 miles back. So I officially have 20 miles on my amphibious kayak cart walking to the lake. And so my goal is I'm going to have 55 miles on that thing here in another couple months. Is one for every year of my life, right? So we're trying to get this done and set up and then get back out. I've got a couple of other projects. Hold on just one second. I did some sketching based off of some pictures that I found, and I'm putting some stuff together. So I believe this is going to be the next stained glass project that I'm going to build. And it's 2 cats. I think I'm going to have a flower in the middle and 2 little cats in a window with nice vines climbing up the sides and some sunbeams shining down on. And it'll be a lot bigger scale. This is just some sketching and laying out and thinking about that I was doing. So this is going to be the next window that I build, I believe, unless something else better comes along. So we'll get this done. We'll get back out into the wilderness for some live streams and sunsets. And then we'll come back and we'll build this. All right, so let me cut this piece real quick. Scoot that out just a little bit more. All right. Yeah, I can't believe I didn't notice that big old chunk out of the end of that. Make sure I'm perpendicular here. It's trying to move on me. There we go. Oh, did it do it again? Okay, no, we're good on that one. Okay, now we're back to the start again in my magic planer. Okay. So now, I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is glue this up on one side and let it sit while I cut. I have some other pieces of lumber that need to be cut, and we'll get those stops cut out of there. And that'll be real easy because I've got some nice cedar strips to use. So what I want to do for now is get my plastic back. There was a reason it was there. This is what I used when I was cleaning all the grout off. It's got some little weird funky spots on it. Okay. So I am going to be putting screws in it, but I want to glue it for starters. Just want to make sure it looks nice, and that, that needs one more nail. Hold on a second, guys. Something went wrong here. I think I need one more nail on my skiff here. I did. Let me secure that better. All right. Still looking good there. Okay. We have saved the jig. And that is not going to work either. Let me reset that. That red line in there is making that section taller. I just want to protect my table from the wood, or from the glue. All right. So now, before I start in with the glue, and see how I'll do that there and lock that piece in. So now I know that all 3 of these are square, and I'll bet you donuts to dollars that if I put a square on this, it'll be dead on because I've already built it out. There's no other way it could be. Oh, Cinnamon, hello, welcome. I don't know what you retracted, but that's okay. I believe in free speech. You can't say nothing wrong. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I just hope you enjoyed the experience I'm bringing. Let's see here. Yeah, that piece was cut a little bit funky. Trying to see if I can kind of hide that mistake better. I think that'll be good. I think that'll be good. All right, so we'll go ahead and put one up here, and I'm going to double check it. Gonna double check it. We're looking good right there. So I know I can trust that line. And that will be just fine. So, and this is just kind of the way I approach building stained glass windows. I'll just build my jig into the project as I go, right? So now I know I've got some nice tight spacing that I can work with. And so we're dry fit. My dry fit looks nice and I'm happy with that. So if you think I've taken too long on this phase, this is the part of the project known as measure twice, cut once, because this is what it is. So I wanted to see how this, oh, so you have to, okay. I see how these work. Okay, so that I will be able to use my clamp when I screw these in, but they're already going to be glued together because if I put them on one corner, I'll have to hang it off the edge, otherwise it won't be flat. So I'm not really sure at what point or where these are going to come in handy, but these little 45-degree quarter clamps are going to get used sometime. So anyway. That's enough yapping. Let me get some glue going on here. And I'm just doing a little on a paintbrush. Whoops. And I'm going to do these ends up real nice. Probably put a little bit more than that on there. And that's why I put the plastic down, because I can pull that off and it'll pull right off the wood and I can sand it out. Oops. And this is just to glue it together so that when I screw it together, it's just the way I build things. I don't know. This is just, it's probably an unnecessary step considering what I'm doing next, but it works for me. So now that we have that, now we're ready to really tighten these corners up, right? So remember what I was saying about these nails being wedge shaped. These are stainless steel German glazing nails, and so I'll place it right up against the material, and what that's going to do is it's going to push this wood and lock it all together about maybe a 1/16 or a 32nd of an inch. So I'll hammer that one almost all the way down to the head so it's spread out, and I've got really good contact at both ends of my piece of wood, right? So then we'll just, and we might reinforce that in a second, but I'll check my measurements first. But you just want to make sure everything's perpendicular up and down. And you just put this nice little wedge-shaped stainless steel nail and slowly start pushing that wood together, and that becomes your clamp. Now what you want to make sure of is that everything's flat to the table. So I'll go around and just press everything downward and make sure that everything's on the same plane. And then I'm going to come in here where I see any little gaps in between. And we're going to let the wood glue fill that in real nicely. This is going to be spray painted and it'll be sanded, but this will help it together nicely. Because it will be hanging, and you know, one of the reasons I go through all these extra steps is it's going to be hanging in the sunlight, and it's just a piece of wood, and in the sun and in a window it's going to deteriorate real fast. So you want to reinforce your corners with as many methods as you have on hand available to you. Let me wash the glue out of this, and I'm going to check for square. Okay, and we'll let that glue set up a little bit. What I want to do is now we'll look at the inside perimeter and make sure that we're looking good. And don't want to see, and that's solid square. That's pretty good. That's solid square. We're looking good on this. I'm liking this. That's just a hair off there. No, we're good. We're good. That one just slipped out a little. Okay. So now that I know that those are set, and I didn't really, I'm going to have to use, we'll use a little piece of foam. But what I want to do is just to make sure these don't roll over side to side. Just to keep them perfect, right? They shouldn't go anywhere, but that one had moved, it's, you know, right as I was checking it for square. So, all right, let's reinforce this and we'll let it be. We'll move on to, whoops. So, and then every time you add a new nail, you're moving your jig over. So you're really compressing that wood and that glue together nicely. And so like I said, I saw this for $2 at the Restore, and I thought, oh, that would be so easy. And I don't know if there's really any other easier way than the way I'm doing it now. So I don't know, man. We'll find out. We'll see what the final project looks like in the end. So, what I want to do now is kind of get this all out of the way. Excuse me just one second. So, what I have here is just a bunch of little scraps of some 1/8 inch thick cedar and some other little pieces of wood. And I want to look at using these as the stop around. And I think, hold on a second. Let me look at this other piece I have in here. I'm trying to decide exactly which one I'm going to use. That. Is that long enough? Okay. That may be more of the thickness that I need. I think that might be better. Ooh, decisions. What to do. I did that backwards. That's going to put the screws on the side where I didn't want them. Well, too late now. We're going to roll with that. So what I'm going to do next is gently cut some little strips. And I'm a little uncertain if I want to use that piece of wood or not. I've got another piece down here. And that might be a bit challenging to work with because let's look at it here. So it's an actual piece of trim. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. Kind of stuck in indecision all of a sudden. I think that I'm going to go ahead and use the pine and not the cedar, because I don't think it'll be wide enough. So at any rate, what I need to make is 4 backstops, and we'll do that. And we could do that in cedar on the back, I suppose. That would be easy. Maybe I should do that. So the plan is, get back on track here. And some of this wood will probably go to waste. But now what I need are backstops for the window to actually sit and rest on so it doesn't fall out of the frame, right? So what I'm going to do is we're going to make a 1/4 inch backstop. That there. Oh. Folks, my phone's ringing. I gotta answer it. I'm so sorry about that. I lost all my viewers. I had a pretty important phone call that I had to take. That was a bummer. I so apologize, everybody, that I just had to take that call. That's just how life is sometimes, right? So give me just 1 second. I had another piece of lumber that I'm looking for real quick. Give me just 1 second. We're playing Look for Lumber today. Hello, welcome back. I'm sorry I left you there for a minute. I didn't mean to go away. I had a really important phone call. And now I can't see any of the chats. Let's see here. There they are. Maybe all my chats went away. Well, welcome back. Thank you for coming back. Thanks for sticking with me. What we were getting ready to do was I was going to cut these and make little 1/8 inch wood stops for my stained glass window. We've got the frame over here is glued up in a jig, and we got some glue going, and we're letting that dry off, and we're switching over. We're going to work on figuring out what we're going to use to make the stops with, so I can glue those on, and then we'll pick everything up later, and I'll put the window in, but we'll have to paint it and sand it and do all that. But then we'll put the window in, and then we'll add a second set of stops to lock it all in together, and we'll be done. So what I did, I put that other piece of wood. I had one nice perfect piece of wood that I was saving for this occasion, and now I cannot seem to locate it. this stuff in my way. Not in there. Oops. Okay, not in there. Let me look at one more spot. Hold on. I'm sorry, folks. I'm all over the place. Yep, there it is. Squared off dowel. So, now this is not enough to go all the way around, but it's enough to establish what size the rest of them are going to be at, right? So if I cut that, that'll be too fat. And if I cut those others, they'll be too thin. So I think what might be in my best interest is to take a hike to, I think I'm just going to walk back to the hardware store and get me some more dowels and make this project really easy. Because I was about to start cutting a set of little tiny thin strips like this, but I don't have any material that's the right thickness. Because, uno momento. Because it's got to be the right thickness, and it also has to be the right width, because I still want to be able to leave some of this frame exposed, right? But this is what I need to lock it all in together. So I think this is where I might need to end the stream today and go for a little hike to the store. But we got a lot done. We cut everything out by hand. No power tools were harmed in the construction of this frame. We've got our frame jigged up. We've got our window ready to install. And all I really need is to go get some of those thin little pieces of wood and make do. I was trying to be fancy. I was trying to be Mr. Craftsman. But it's really going to be too much work and too much precision that I'm not really interested in. So there's a bunch of my screen is missing. It looks different. Hopefully everything will remain the same. Ah, there it is. There it is. There you are. Welcome back. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. Kind of quick, kind of cheesy. I guess I was not as prepared as I thought I was, but we've got a good start on putting this frame together. And then here in just a few days, maybe next week, you see my little stained glass frog? So I'm going to do a project that's kind of those colors maybe, but what I'm really wanting to build next is the kitty cat window. So I'm going to do two cats facing each other on a profile in the sunbeams with some nice green vines and leaves on the windowsill growing up and around the cats. So that'll be our next project as soon as I get this dang frame done. So thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you all for the likes. Thank you for the support, the chat. Everything helps the algorithm. I'm not here for the money. This is a retirement studio. This is a hobby studio, and I really enjoy sharing the 30 years of craftsmanship and things that I've learned along the way in different stained glass studios and construction sites and different jobs that I've had. I like to really bring it all together, and I like to bring as much of that to YouTube as I can for the younger generation and the nostalgic alike, because you know, most people don't do things the way I do things. I do things the way somebody in the Ozarks with no electricity would do things. I try to keep it all as redneck as possible on purpose. I want things to be obviously handmade, and I want them to look that way. I like that. So I really appreciate y'all being here. I'm going to sign off, and we'll see you next time for our next project. Good night. and good night.